Hi, I'm Jennifer Sir, owner of The Sewing Room. Welcome to our conversations about sustainability and sustainability in fashion. So today we're talking with Maria Chenut, who owns a vintage store here in town called Moodswing. But prior to opening Moodswing, Maria worked at the sewing room as one of our instructors. She was much beloved by all her students and eventually moved on to do other things. And so today I want to talk with her about what she's actually up to now, about her store, and about her upcycling. So without further ado, let's talk with Maria. Hi, Maria. Welcome back to the sewing room.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's fun to be with you again.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I come from a fine arts background, and then doing a lot of like collage and mixed media pieces, um, and working just with things that I find. So the move into sewing came in a similar way of like taking pieces together and putting pieces together. And so I worked a lot with theater companies doing costumes as a way of kind of doing something creative and something collage, but also working in a group setting. And then when I moved to the States again in 2013, I met Jennifer Sir and I started teaching sewing with Jennifer and having to kind of up my sewing game personally to also realize like how do you do things properly and catching up on learning how to use patterns and um, becoming a better sewist myself. And also teaching was really interesting in the sense that you you have to translate like how do I know this? Like why do I know how to do this? And what how does it make sense or how can I make have that make sense for somebody else? So that was also really interesting to learn about myself by teaching others. And and then because I've been always good at finding things, then I kind of pivoted a couple years ago and opened up a vintage shop here in Alameda, California, where I have also lots of fabric and notions and things like that because I keep collecting them. Um, and so yeah, so I'm sharing a lot of my love for vintage and for reuse and for keeping things out of the dump.
I love it. I love keeping things out of the dump. It's one of my favorite things, actually. How did you start Mood Swing? Well, you told us where it's located already, but how did you start it?
Um, so my partner Colin and I had our kind of art making studios in a second floor space that was just stairs are always an adventure, and the more you're carrying stuff, the less you feel like going up and down stairs. So we discovered a ground floor space here in our neighborhood in Alameda, and so we just kind of went for it. It was the pandemic, kind of brazen move there to open up a space, but there's been good public response. We feel like it's very much a neighborhood business as well. Like I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of people from the neighborhood, and that I'm a service to the neighborhood as well. Um, so that's been really fun.
That's really wonderful, actually, that's come out of it as well as just, selling stuff and moving things around. But you are a very welcoming person, and I'm not surprised that you've gotten to know so many of your neighbors because of this. Um, for as long as I've known you, you were an avid upcycler. How often do you still work on upcycle projects, and how much of business does that generate?
Yeah. So upcycling is actually kind of how I came into sewing as a teenager. Like I didn't talk about that part, but um, I would take my allowance and go to the thrift store and buy stuff and like cut it up and put it back together in different ways. So I've been upcycling for a while, and that's kind of how I taught myself how to sew. And so the artistic impulse and the need to make things is always there if you're a maker. And so um, I have I would say less and less time to make things, but I fight to keep that time for myself every once in a while.
Mhm.
And so I'll make things kind of in batches. Um, I guess I'll like either fall in love with a pattern that I want to use, and I want to see like, oh, if I did it with this material or these colors, or if I altered it in this way, what would it look like? And so I sometimes that's how it goes. Or sometimes I'll have like a specific material that I want to reuse, and then that'll dictate like what kind of pattern, what I'll make out of it. Um, so like I had like a chenille bedspread, and so that was like, oh, okay, well the curves at the bottom, that'll look really good for like a poncho type thing. And then I had other pieces left. I'm like, oh, that'll be good for panels here for this other pattern that I have. And so you're figuring, and then you get to like smaller pieces, and then it becomes like these little panels, and you're like, okay, well then this becomes a zipper pouch. And so you're trying to um, figure out, yeah, sometimes it's the pattern that wants the material, sometimes it's the material that wants the pattern. um, but I'm also fascinated, I think, with scraps and things in pieces. Like, I rather than having a blank canvas, for painting, I like having all the inspiring little bits, like maybe there's a something that I like the sleeve, and so but it'll look better on something else, and so I'll I'll mix and match. Yeah, that's kind of how my process goes. It's kind of an uh, intuitive thing.
Can you tell us a little bit about Upcycle Alameda?
Oh yeah. So Upcycle Alameda was founded by Joan Boucher, who lived here in Alameda for many years. Um, and she passed the baton to three of us here still in Alameda. Um, so it started in Joan's house, and her garage was full of materials that were available for upcycling. So we would all show up and make things and be inspired by each other, and definitely around reuse. A lot of textile people, but also junk sculpture or other kinds of adventures like that. So then the pandemic hit, and so we moved to an online platform through Meetup, and so you can find us there, Upcycle Alameda on Meetup, and we meet on Zoom every Thursday, and then we also meet in person still once a month.
Once a month. Awesome.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then Eve, who helps me run the group, she also does a decluttering sessions twice a week. So
Twice a week. That's so does she declutter twice a week?
yes. Also, I think one of the ways that she talks about it is that us arty folks, and especially if you're trying to keep things out of the landfill, like people come to you and they're like, "Here, I have all this junk and I don't know what to do with it," and all of a sudden you're stuck with it and you have to try and channel it somewhere or figure out what to do with it. And so we're eternally trying to keep our materials under control so that then we can have time to use them.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
can relate to that for sure.
yeah. So to just keep on top of the flow of objects in and out. Um, yeah.
And then a long time ago, or I should say just a few years ago, you were doing costume design. And I remember I think it was Don Quixote that you were working on. And it was the first time I really saw the extent of your upcycling in action. So you had made a suit of armor for one of the characters out of, I think they were the grocery store steamers that you buy, the metal steamers.
Yeah,
So
they unfold like a flower. Yeah.
yes, yes. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experience as a costume designer and why you would start using you know, unusual materials to create things?
Yeah. Well, that case in particular, like Don Quixote, uh, the character is supposed to be a kind of wise man, madman, and so for him to have a normal suit of armor would be kind of weird because he's already weird. So you would think he would put on, something wild that and call it his suit of armor. So it made sense to use materials like that. And then you're trying to think of like, okay, what has the shape of, the scales or like, so you're translating between one set of materials and another, um, while still having it, needing to be somewhat practical, not too heavy, or how do you attach this on? There's all kinds of problem solving as well, which I really enjoy in the costuming side of things. Yeah.
That's very cool. Do you offer any custom work for upcycling?
I have worked with a couple people, but it's a little hard at times to translate like one thing is me making something with my impulses, and then um it's hard to know like, will this person like it if I mix it with this? Or there's a lot, yeah, it's not always easy to translate that.
Hmm.
I mean, I know there's people uh, who have found kind of formulas, I guess. Making quilts is one of them, or making. I know there's folks who make memory keepsakes
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
with deceased people, deceased loved ones, um,
Their clothing.
clothes or their ties or things like that. Like that seems like a way to you're processing it into something structured, right?
Hmm.
Whereas making an upcycled garment for someone in particular there's just too many individual
Right.
bits. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little harder.
Where do you find, we sort of talked about that already, but where do you find inspiration for upcycled garments? Do you go onto Pinterest? Is it completely just in your brain? How does it work?
Yeah, I do love looking at what other people are doing and lots of images. So I do have a number of Pinterest folders that I look at, and um, but it's kind of like cooking. Like I'll look at 25 recipes, and then I'll make something that is inspired by the 20, but nothing in particular. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, let's switch gears and talk about your shop a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so you have a vintage shop that's got lots of wonderful goodies inside. How do you find the vintage product for Mood Swing? And how often do you shop for product?
Well, I'm kind of shopping and finding things all the time. There's like uh, several markets that I go and shop at. Mainly, like there's folks who buy storage units. Um, so they'll approach me and say, "Oh, there was a bunch of glass, or this one has a bunch of vintage clothes." Um, so that's like one channel. People who empty out houses as well will approach me and say, also now that I have a storefront, people walk in the door with items, or you know with their problematic of emptying out or helping to clear a house.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean, people acquire lots of stuff their entire life. And so, and then their kids, or either they don't have anybody to give it to, or somebody doesn't necessarily want it anymore. But it's
Hmm.
super important to get it into the hands of people who will love it. So I'm super excited about what you do for that reason.
Yeah.
Um, besides Mood Swing, are there other places that you sell?
So I have also a space in a beautiful mid-century collective near Jack London Square called Narrative. Um, it's 15,000 square feet of the nicest things you would ever want. Um, it's just a beautiful space. So I'm very happy to have some things there. And then I also sell at markets. I do the Oakland Vintage Market that's organized by the folks at Narrative. And then I do the Alameda Antique Fair. I've done that for many, many years before having the shop, and that kind of played a segue into having the shop. But yeah, so those are two monthly fairs. Then there's specific kind of vintage fashion fairs that happen several times a year here in the Bay Area. A couple different ones organized by different folks, and that's also a nice way to have a nice indoor market where you can just present things in a really charming way and find the collector types who are looking for these really special pieces that do come up.
Awesome. Both wearing vintage as well as upcycled items is a great way to be sustainable in today's fashion climate. How long have you been pursuing sustainable fashion, and why?
Yeah. Well, I've always been thrifty, so part of it is definitely like a thrifty element and a kind of resourcefulness, I would say. Um, yeah, and then the quality of the materials that were used, you know, several years ago is so much better overall than what is made now. There are some exceptions, and I do carry them in my shop. I do carry certain more contemporary brands when I find them because they use linen, they use 100% cotton, um, or they have interesting designs that you don't find necessarily otherwise. But yeah.
Um, do you have a favorite type of garment you like to work with, or something that you keep in the shop all the time,
Hmm. Um,
or something that you look for when you're out there digging?
um, I love shoes. I always end up wearing the same pair, but I love shoes. So that is definitely like a little category of mine. Um, and then I tend to wear a lot of like coats and jackets. So I look for them. And so that's also one thing that I make a fair amount. Like this is a quilt coat.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love the graphic nature of it. So lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to patterns and textures as well. So like all of this, you know, is what
Yeah.
I what I gravitate towards.
My husband likes jackets. So I know that if I ever buy a jacket, he will never ever like question the purchase, no matter what it is. And he will find jackets all the time. Like he's like a jacketaholic. But
Ooh,
um,
great.
do you have an ideal customer?
Oh, yeah, just somebody who's playful, who's willing to try something new. I try to carry things that are a little unusual just because that differentiates my shop from other shops, and it's also more fun for me to have things that are a little unusual. So, um, yeah, so I really enjoy it when somebody um, comes in a playful mood and wants to try on something different.
Awesome. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
So you can come to the shop. I'm there Wednesday through Friday, 2 to 5, and on the weekends, 12 to 5. If I'm not there, I usually have somebody sitting in for me. Um, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and under Moodswing Market. And I also have an Etsy shop. I don't post a lot on Etsy. Um, it's a whole different can of worms to deal with than the in-person shop, and I prefer the in-person experience with my customers than the online experience, I guess. So yeah.
I'll link all of that below in the show notes, so people can get a hold of you,
And
and come visit you at Mood Swing.
I also I have a blog that I don't update very often at all, but if people are curious about some of the costuming things or as well and the upcycle bits, the that can be seen over there.
Awesome. And finally, do you have any advice for people either selling their upcycled garments or vintage and used clothing?
Uh, hmm. Uh, well, anything handmade is exponentially harder to sell because you're defending something that you've made in your own product, and you're having to justify the hours that you put into it. Um, Whereas selling a secondhand garment that you have not made somehow is much easier, and people are willing to, you know, people aren't willing to normally pay as much for a handmade thing. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of love that goes into that and a lot of work, and the quality of handmade things is also sometimes very much superior to the industry made pieces. So
Yeah, I find people don't really understand what it actually takes to produce garments, whether it's in a factory or by oneself. There's just so much work that goes into it on all levels, and especially when it's something that you've made yourself. It's it's imbued with so much more energy and creativity and all of that than something that's made in a factory. So
yeah. And
yeah,
then in upcycling is just completely unique too. So you're not going to find another one. Uh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope that people start valuing that more, and I think it's come a long ways. I know when I was in France recently, and I think you were in France recently, I saw a lot more upcycling than like people would have it on their windows, like on their store windows, and they would display it and um, and promote it. And I thought that was just so fantastic and such a change from being here and everybody's chasing Zara or one of
Yeah.
the big brands.
I think it is having a bit of a moment, and I hope it keeps going and it doesn't just become a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at a place where we have to start using our resources more wisely. So just so that we can continue living on planet Earth. I won't get too deep into that because it is really a hard subject to talk about. But I
Yeah,
think it's
there's a
important. I
huge
think
amount of really depressing statistics out there about the waste of the fashion industry and of just our consumer culture in general. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's put it on a high note going out of here.
Yes.
I am so happy to see what you're up to. And it's so fun to run into you around town. And also, it's fun to get little text messages from you asking if I need stuffing for the camps or, yeah. And then to see you out at the markets as well is really fabulous. So, I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing. It's important for our community and it's important. It's just important, and then to see the artwork that you create as well is really wonderful. So thank you for doing what you're doing, Maria.
No, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for creating awareness of all the fashion jobs and all the myriads of ways that we can work in fashion and in the world. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean we all wear clothes. That's what I tell people all the time. We all wear clothes, so we have to figure something out. Well, we all wear clothes most of the time, right? Anyways, well, thank you so much for being here, Maria.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
What a great conversation with Maria. I'm glad you got to know her a little bit, just like I've known her, and to find out a little bit more about her shop here in Alameda and what she does. It's a fabulous resource for our community that she's offering both her own artwork through upcycling and also by selling vintage items, both clothing and homewares, to our local community. So let's give Maria a big thank you for doing that. It's really fabulous. And it adds to, it's just one more way our community is being sustainable and that we can keep things out of the landfill because that's really the ultimate goal. And if you want to learn more about upcycling and and how to be sustainable. We have a couple great classes coming up in the fall. One is custom thrift flips, and the other is denim remix. And there's more information on our website, which you can check out at thesewingroomalameda.com /fashion-studies. So thank you for being here and watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit thumbs up and hit subscribe. It really helps us out. Until next time, everyone, happy sewing.